It's the biggest week for Texas football. It's the Red River Showdown as the Longhorns and Sooners go head-to-head at the Cotton Bowl. We'll get you all you need to know about this game coming up on the 1-0 Sports Show.
Texas finally 1-0, finally riding for the brand.
I was watching the A&M LSU game with my father. He's an Aggie.
Miss him.
And nothing brought me more joy. To throw the touchdown, he was like, oh no.
I was talking to Drew the other day.
You heard it here first from Hunter. Book your plane tickets to Omaha today.
It's on a Saturday night. What y'all doing on Saturday night? Just come to the game.
Athletes come out and support the Longhorns. TCU doesn't have a shot against Texas in this game.
Welcome into the 1-0 Sports Show on this Friday morning. I'm joined by Jason Kinander, Jacob Campos. Jason, how are you doing this morning?
I am doing very well, Adam. I'm so ready for another stacked week of college football. And of course, it is rivalry week here in Austin, one of the most exciting weeks of the year. We're ready to unpack it all for you.
Jacob, making your debut on 1-0 this semester. How are you doing, sir?
Yeah, I'm doing great, Adam. Thank you for having me on. It is the best week of the year. And unlike Bama, we probably have a chance to win this weekend, so I'm doing great.
There we go. Well, even though it is UTOU week, guys, we got to start this 1-0 Sports Show like we do every 1-0 Sports Show. That's with who's hot and who's not. So, Jason, it's UTOU edition. So let's start with you. Who's hot for you?
Yeah, Texas and Oklahoma edition. And starting out with my who's hot, there would be nobody else on the Texas offense to really go with other than Xavier Worthy. He is fresh off of his biggest breakout game of the 2022 season. Xavier Worthy had 7 catches for 119 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, and this trickeration pass touchdown to Jatavian Sanders that we are about to see right here. Great to see Zay get involved in the Texas offense. Now, this is a lot like last season against Texas Tech when Worthy had his big breakout game as a true freshman. Right before the Oklahoma game, of course, the way last season's Red River game started was with that Worthy 75-yard touchdown on the first play from scrimmage. He is red hot. I'd expect a big game out of him this weekend, playing well at the right time. Who's hot? Xavier Worthy.
That last throw was an answered prayer, though.
Absolutely, but a great catch.
For sure. For me, you actually stole mine a little bit. My who's hot? How about the trick plays? How about that double pass from Hudson Card, throwing it back to Xavier Worthy, finding Jatavian Sanders wide open? Guys, I think this is the week. I think this could be the week that Roschon Johnson throws a pass. We've seen the Wildcats so many times, and it's just been Johnson either handing it off to Bijan Robinson or taking it himself. I think that Steve Sarkisian, he may have been saving something for the Red River rivalry. I expect another trick play out of Texas this week as we saw that Wildcat there on that last play against Tech. I think it's time to throw a pass.
It's a very interesting prediction. Roschon Johnson pass. I like it.
Who can imagine that?
We shall
I
see.
can see that.
Jacob, what about you? Who's hot for you?
I like that. I love the idea of Rojo actually throwing this weekend. Big fan of that. For me, I'm going to go with the guy that's been in every single clip and nobody's mentioned. Jatavian Sanders started on the John Mackey Award list as one of the best tight ends in the country. He was very notable. Now through 5 games, he's got 3 touchdowns, 212 yards, and he's averaging 10.6 yards a reception. With Quinn in the first game, 6 catches, 85 yards, 1 touchdown. Last week, he had 5 for 78 for 2 touchdowns. Needless to say, it doesn't matter who's out there, he's a weapon. So if we roll out Hudson, Jatavian's going to be huge. If we roll out Quinn, which we hopefully will, it's going to be Jatavian. I expect a big game from him. I'm going to go ahead and say he's going to go for 8+ receptions this weekend.
Big call there. We've seen Steve Sarkisian get the tight ends more involved in the offense this year, and a big reason of that is definitely Jatavian Sanders' athleticism. Now let's go to the flip side, guys. Who's not? Jason, who's not hot for you?
Yeah, and this is a very obvious answer, even more obvious than my who's hot answer, and this is the Oklahoma defense, fresh off of an absolute monstrosity against TCU. We're going to roll the tape here. This is every touchdown that Oklahoma gave up in the first half, and spoiler alert, it's a lot. Max Duggan did an awesome job of expanding the field, but as you're going to see in these clips, Oklahoma gave up touchdowns in every way, form, or fashion. Long runs, long passes, short runs. Anything you can imagine, TCU had their way. This is going to be undoubtedly a big problem for the Sooners defense against Texas, who is even more multidimensional than TCU is. Texas has the best running back in the conference in Bijan Robinson. They also have the best wide receiver in the conference in Xavier Worthy, and with Quinn Ewers potentially coming back to play, Oklahoma is going to have a hard time stopping anybody on this Texas offense if what they did or didn't do against TCU last week is an indication of anything.
Yeah, great point there. For me, I'm going to go to the other side of the Oklahoma Sooners football team. The Oklahoma quarterback situation, it is not hot. It started out here, I think it's this play. It's a dirty hit by the TCU player. Look, Dylan Gabriel's going to scramble here. He's going to go into a slide. It's just a dirty, dirty hit. The player rightly ejected for targeting, but now that's created a conundrum for Oklahoma. Davis Bevel came in, the Pitt transfer. He's struggled. They've got two untested quarterbacks, and Nick Evers and General Booty that could play. There's a lot of question marks surrounding this Oklahoma offense, and it's going to be interesting to see who Brent Venables rolls out this weekend. Jacob, what about you? Bring us home.
I'm just going to go ahead and piggyback off Jason. I'm going to kind of head and zero in on one specific group on the defense, though, and that's going to go ahead and be their run defense. Now, they're currently ranked 119th in the nation, and opponents are good at averaging over 198 yards per game and about 5 yards a carry, and they have led over 10 touchdowns at this point. We got Roshan, we got Bijan. I expect them to gash that defense all game long.
Well, and the interesting point, too, I mean, Brent Venables was the defensive coordinator at Clemson. You haven't seen any improvement. If anything, I feel like the Oklahoma defense is taking a step back, guys.
Not a lot of coordination on defense for a team ran by a former defensive coordinator. I don't see much of anything here from Oklahoma as we run back those clips again, and it will be very interesting to see how the game plays out. But if that's an indication of anything, Texas should get their way on offense.
Well, we're going to go from who's hot, who's not. We're going to go into our Red River preview. We're going to break down a couple of big question marks heading into that game. Guys, real quick, thumbs up, thumbs down. Is Quinn Ewers going to be the starting quarterback for the Longhorns on Saturday? Jason?
I'm going to go with yes. Steve Sarkisian said on Monday that this is the healthiest they have been at the quarterback position all year. That includes Quinn Ewers as well as Malik Murphy. This is Quinn Ewers' team. He was named the starter before the Alabama game, before the first game of the season, went down in the Alabama game. He's healthy. It's his team. He'll be under center on Saturday.
I definitely agree. I think his deep ball just brings something else to this Texas offense that Hudson Card doesn't. Hudson Card has played really, really well. We've seen definitely a big step from last year to this year, but Quinn Ewers just brings something else. This Texas team really stretches the field vertically. I think he gets the start if he's healthy, and I think he will. Jacob?
For me, I bought a Quinn Ewers t-shirt off Barstool that comes in tomorrow. I will be wearing it at the game because he is my QB1, so I'm going to have to roll with that. Hudson Card, I think he had the perfect ending. I think that was his swan song as he had his best performance ever as a Texas Longhorn. Passes it off to Quinn so Quinn can take over.
Well, now let's go from that. We talked about the quarterback position. Now let's look at what else Texas has going into the game. Who do you guys think will be Texas' most important player or position group on Saturday? Jason, let's start with you.
Yeah, the most important position group is obviously the offense for Texas. It doesn't matter who's under center for quarterback for Oklahoma. They're likely going to be without Dylan Gabriel. So this Sooners offense is going to be shorthanded to the highest degree possible. The defense stinks. The defense played terrible against TCU last week. Couldn't stop anything against the Horned Frogs, and we have a fully healthy Texas offense. Quinn Ewers will likely be under center. Jatavian Sanders has had a big season at tight end. Xavier Worthy, a wide receiver. Jordan Whittington is another player to watch out of the number 2 wide receiver spot. Been very sure-handed this year. The offense is the most important position unit. I'll get into this a little bit more later, but last season, the reason why Texas fell short in this game was because the offense didn't play the full 60 minutes. The offense stepped off the gas pedal in the second half, could no longer pace with Oklahoma, and Texas lost the game. This year, if the offense can show up for the full 60 minutes, Texas should win the game.
I'm going to flip to the other side of the ball for my most important position group. I'm going to say the defensive line, especially with the questions surrounding that Oklahoma quarterback position. I think it's crucial for this Texas team to get pressure on whoever the Oklahoma quarterback is. And they did it well on Saturday against West Virginia. 3 sacks on JT Daniels. Barron Sorrell had a second half. He's had a great start to this year. We saw Texas get a lot of pressure on Alabama. They didn't get as much on Texas Tech. It's been a little bit of up and down. So when you have probably an inexperienced quarterback from Oklahoma, it's going to be crucial that the Longhorns have a pass rush on Saturday and don't let that quarterback sail into the game, whoever Brent Venables ends up going with.
And I'm just going to go ahead and go with the best running back in the nation. I'm going to say it's going to have to be the Bijan Robinson show. Look, last year against TCU, that was Bijan's breakout game where he had 25-plus carries. And for me, Bijan's only had about 17 to 18 touches on the ball this season. Hasn't touched it a lot. I think this is the game where Sark realizes if we have Hudson Card, that's fine, but it's still OU. It's still a different environment. If it's Quinn Ewers, he's got to shake off the rust a little bit, so let's rely on the run for that first half just to kind of let Quinn feel comfortable and get acclimated to the environment. Bijan, give him 20, 25-plus touches, and just keep the ball moving, keep the ball churning, because he should be able to do it pretty easily. I think we all remember that run last year in the first half against Oklahoma where he got knocked out the 1-yard line, but he had like 6 cuts and a juke. I expect Bijan to get the ball at least 25 times in this game.
Yeah, TCU ran through Oklahoma like a knife through butter, and I think Bijan Robinson could very well do that this weekend. Let's go now. We talked about some positives. Now let's go to the flip side. Guys, what are you most concerned about for this Longhorn football team heading in to the Red River Showdown? Jason, let's start with you again.
And the thing that I'm the most concerned about is, as I just talked about a little bit earlier, is playing the full 60 minutes. This is an intense game. This is a rivalry game. And even as we saw a couple weeks ago against Alabama, had Texas played that full 60 minutes, Texas would only have one loss by now. And it's something that the Longhorns have struggled with for the entirety of the Steve Sarkisian tenure. The blown leads, especially at halftime, have gotten a little ridiculous. This is an absolute no-no for this week. Texas cannot blow any lead in this game. The Horns need to score early. They need to score often. They cannot let off the gas pedal. You don't need to be nice to your opponent. It's a rivalry game. Run up the score. Play the full 60 minutes. Make it hurt. If Texas can do that, there's no reason why they shouldn't come out on top, because they outplayed Oklahoma last year. They just didn't show up for the entire 60 minutes.
Yeah, and I think that clip that we just showed right there, the Kennedy Brooks touchdown, his time basically expired. I'm sure that's been going on in the UT facility all week. For me, I've got this stat here, graphic, if we want to pull it up. What I'm most concerned about is Texas run blocking the trenches. They have the best rushing offense in the Big 12. Their run blocking, though, is rated last by Pro Football Focus, and that's my concern is in those short yardage situations, we haven't really seen this Texas team be physical up front. We haven't seen them get a push at the line of scrimmage, and because of that, there hasn't been a ton of room for Bijan Robinson or Roschon Johnson to operate in. So when you come against crucial 3rd down and 2s or 3rd down and 1s, or when you go, in that 2-minute offense and you're trying to run out the clock late in the game, can Texas get that crucial 3 or 4 yards per play? Because that hasn't been something we've seen them be able to do so far this year. So that's what I'm most concerned about. As much as I think Bijan Robinson's going to get a lot of touches, he's going to need some help from his O-line on Saturday.
Absolutely. And I think for me, myself personally, it's going to be when you are playing in OU's end zone, it is going to be different. It is going to be loud. And Texas has undeniably one of the worst road records, especially in recent memory, that we can't finish. It's going to be how do we address that? How do we handle the pressure? But more importantly, if we get the stops, what do we do on 4th down? Because Texas right now on 4th down is undeniably horrendous. Against Texas Tech, 6 of 8. And then against West Virginia, we still had 3 for 5 4th down conversions. So far this year, our opponents are averaging, are 10 for 18 for a good 55% completion on 4th down. Texas can get the stop on 3rd down, but it's all a matter of if we can get the stop on 4th down and if we can step up in the moments that matter the most.
Well, that's a great point, too, because Oklahoma, their own two conference play, they've got nothing to lose. They're going to pull out all the stops. They're not going to be afraid of going for it on 4th down, making risky plays. So I think that's definitely going to be something that we're going to have to keep an eye on this Texas defense. Let's flip over to Oklahoma real quick, guys. Which OU player do you guys think Texas should be most concerned about? Jason, let's go back to you.
Yeah, for me, that has to be Marvin Mims. He's the #1 wide receiver for Oklahoma. Regardless of who is under center, he will be the top option to get the ball on most passing plays on Saturday. Let's take a look at a very interesting stat that I found from last season where Marvin Mims, he was Oklahoma's #1 wide receiver. Oklahoma, they lost 2 games all last season. In those games, Marvin Mims against Baylor had 2 receptions for 17 yards. In the last game against Oklahoma State, Marvin Mims had 1 catch for 4 yards. So when Marvin Mims does not go, the Oklahoma offense does not move. So it will be the task of the Texas secondary to keep Marvin Mims hedged in, make sure that he can't have a big game, because if he can be held without a touchdown, held to less than 4 catches, most of the time Oklahoma loses. So Marvin Mims, if he can stay quiet, the Longhorns will come out on top.
Yeah, great point. You saw those 2 touchdowns. It was against Kent State, but you can see how he stretched the field. And it almost throws me back to CeeDee Lamb 3 years ago. He absolutely killed the Longhorns. He feasted on them all day. Be interesting to see if Texas can stop Marvin Mims from doing that. For me, I'm going to flip to the other side of the ball since you said Marvin Mims. I'm going to go with Reggie Grimes, Oklahoma defensive end. He has 4 sacks on the year. The interesting thing is they all did come in the first 2 games, but I think for this Texas, if it's Quinn Ewers in the back, you're definitely going to want to protect his shoulder. You're not going to want him taking big hits. So they're going to keep an eye on Reggie Grimes coming off the edge. But I will say, Kelvin Banks and Christian Jones, they played well this year. Can't complain too much about the tackles, but you got to keep an eye on Reggie Grimes. How about you, Jacob?
For me, I'm going to go ahead and give some love to a guy who has already exceeded his touchdown count and his snaps from last year. I'm going to go for Eric Gray, the OU running back. Now he's averaging 7 yards a game, 460 yards on the season, and 3 touchdowns. However, my only concern is I think I'm still the one who's a little bit more nervous about this game, no matter who the quarterback is, just because I just feel like it's OU. No matter what, something's going to happen. But the thing is that they're just going to keep giving him the ball. And he said in his press interview, all I'm there to do is keep the quarterback calm, and I'm going to help game manage. And also, he's actually pretty good at the backfield, too. And he's over 20 catches on the season. So if he can keep it going and he keeps averaging these, 3 or 4 yard runs, plus a catch or two, and you get down there where it's 4th and 1, 3rd and 2, they're not going to be afraid to just keep going for it and keep hammering it. That's what scares me is if we can get them, if they get into these short yard situations, Texas gets winded fast. And they're just going to keep going and going and going. That won't give us time to get our guys off the field. I think our linebacker play is vastly improved, and our front is improved, but I'm worried to see what Eric Gray does against us if he can keep moving.
Yeah, for sure, Texas. I do say, though, the Texas linebacking core has been really, really impressive this year with DeMarvion Overshown and Jalen Ford. They're going to need those guys to make big open field tackles on Saturday. Final question of this block, guys. Who do you think could be an X factor in this game for any team, either side of the ball? Jason, what do you think?
Yeah, maybe not the X factor, but a possible X factor for me is Ajay Hall. This is somebody who we have honestly been really waiting to see the field for Texas, transfer from Alabama. Got in a little bit of trouble because of the parking incident, but Ajay Hall has seen his snap count increase, not his target count, but his snap count, so he is on the field more. Saw him on the field quite a bit against Texas Tech. One key statistic for me is last week against TCU, Oklahoma allowed receptions to 10 receivers. Now, traditionally for Texas's offense, when they're not dumping the ball off, we really only see the ball go in the direction of 4 receivers, that being Xavier Worthy, Jordan Whittington, Jatavian Sanders, and occasionally Casey Kane. Now, I think that this is a week where a 5th name will enter that mix, Mr. Ajay Hall. Now, I'm not calling a touchdown or a big yardage game, but I think we're going to see a little bit more of Ajay Hall than we're accustomed to, and I think he'll have his introduction to Longhorn fans this Saturday.
I'm going to stick with the offense, too. I'm going to go Roschon Johnson. I'm going to go back to my who's hot. Man, I'm convinced this dude, I think this is the week he's going to throw a pass, but even if he doesn't, I mean, look back to this run freshman year. This is how Texas scored their first touchdown, 3 years ago, my freshman year. 8 carries for 95 yards in this game, and that was when he had just switched from quarterback to running back. You look at this clip here from high school. I mean, he was a quarterback. Look at this deep ball when he's playing for Port Neches Grove over the top. So, I mean, I don't know, guys. I just feel like Sark's been keeping something up his sleeve. We'll see. I hope we see Roschon Johnson pass out the Wildcat. They didn't run the Wildcat at all against West Virginia, so maybe saving some of that tape for this week. We'll see.
I like it. I like
Jacob,
it.
who's your X factor?
For me, I'm going to go with the guy that once he got hurt last year, everything fell apart in the second half when we played OU. I'm going to go with Jordan Whittington. Let's just say somehow, some way that Oklahoma decides, we're going to sell out and we're just going to fill the box and we're going to send blitz after blitz after blitz. Who's going to be there? The guy who's undeniably one of the best slant catchers, and he's a great route runner. Just give Jordan Whittington. Just keep giving those quick little dump off balls to him. I think if we have Jordan steps up, then he can go off and he can always make sure the chains are moving.
And to add on to that, I really like that point because against Alabama, we saw Jordan Whittington come up big when Hudson Card was in the game.
Yep.
Card was still getting into a rhythm, but Whittington was making these agile catches on underthrown, overthrown balls, big 3rd down plays. I really like that pick for Whittington to be an X factor.
Well, for sure, because you see Worthy stretch the field, and it seems like Whittington's kind of that reliable intermediate guy who's going to get you the big catch on 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 7 and really help move the chains. Well, guys, that was a good block. Definitely a lot to look forward on the field in the Cotton Bowl on Saturday. When we come back here on the 1-0 Sports Show, don't worry, we're not done yet. More UT-OU content to come. You're watching the 1-0 Sports Show. For the final time on this Friday morning, welcome back into the 1-0 Sports Show. And guys, it's time to go to our pick'ems, time to put our reputations on the line. Before we get into the 10 games we're picking this week, let's go real quick through an upset that we think could happen. Underdog of the week, Jason, let's start with you.
Okay, so I have been very low on this Oregon football squad for most of the year. I liked some of the transfers that they had added. The transfer I did not like that they added was Bo Nix under center, and that has shown with the up and down season that the Ducks have had to this point. This week they're hosting Arizona, who went winless 2 seasons ago, had 2 wins last year. Not only do I have Arizona covering, I have Arizona winning. This is a completely different team, completely different program than the past 2 seasons. Maybe we're all just high on these previous winless teams that are having big years. Kansas, I don't know what it is, but Jaden DeLora is the difference in this game for me. The Washington State transfer has looked excellent under center for the Wildcats. Possible NFL draft pick next season when he'll be a junior. I like the Wildcats to possibly come into Autzen and roll the Ducks.
Man, I'm going to stay in the Pac-12. I've been banging this drum. I picked Oregon State to beat them a couple weeks ago. They came within one possession of doing it. I'm going to say Washington State gets the better of USC. I think Washington State, they've got the offense to do it. Cameron Ward threw for 375 yards against Oregon. They've already beat Wisconsin on the road this year. I don't know, man. I mean, USC let Stanford and Arizona State kind of hang around. I was watching the USC-Arizona State game. Arizona State got an onside kick at one point that could have brought back to one possession and got called back for blocking too early. I think this Washington State team has the offense to hang around with USC. It's already been a bad enough week for Oklahoma. Let's throw a Lincoln Riley upset in there. Jacob, who do you have?
Wow. That was a good pick. I like that one, yeah. I'm going to go ahead and give some love to UNC over Miami. Now, North Carolina, they are one of the hottest offenses in the country. Luke May is leading the ACC touchdown passes with 19. And last weekend, Miami's quarterback Van Dyke got benched in the third quarter, but they have announced that he will be starting this weekend. Miami just doesn't have anything going right for them on offense right now, so I'm going to go ahead with UNC. 3:30 game in Miami. They only have like 10 fans show up to the stadium. Go ahead and ride with the Tar Heels.
There we go. Hey, Middle Tennessee win their win. So why can't Mac do it? Give us more Mac post-game celebration dances.
I like it.
There you go. Let's move into our 10 games. Pick 'em. We're going to start with their first games actually tonight. Nebraska taking on Rutgers. That's on Fox Sports 1 at 6 o'clock. Big Ten Showdown. Jason, who do you have in that one?
Yeah, I have Nebraska for the first time in a long time, honestly, since the Cornhuskers hired Scott Frost. This is a team, a program that has positive momentum. Mickey Joseph won the Big Ten West opener last week. This is a team that has taken a hard reset since the beginning of their season, losing to Northwestern in Ireland and then losing to Georgia Southern. Now it's conference play season. Can they regroup? It's a wide open Big Ten West. I like the Huskers to win in Rutgers on Friday night.
Yeah, this is a weird game. These are two, I think, very probably below average teams. I'm going to go Rutgers. I'm going to give it to him at home. I think Greg Schiano, I think he feels the pressure for this Rutgers team. He knows this is a winnable game for them. They already beat Boston College by a point. They beat Temple as well. The only concerning result I'm looking at, 27-10 to Iowa, but we'll see. Rutgers at home on Friday night. Give me the Scarlet Knights.
There you go. It's a win in and of itself just not have Scott Frost as your head coach anymore. And the thing is, you just got to always support the Longhorns. You got to support Mac Brown. So let's go ahead and support Casey Thompson as well. Let's ride with Nebraska this weekend.
Don't forget about Marcus Washington.
Anyway.
Arkansas traveling to take on number 23 Mississippi State in SEC play. Jacob, who do you have in that one?
KJ Jefferson. He's still an X factor to me, and he's still dominant. And they did just clarify yesterday that he will be starting this weekend. He's fine. He's not healthy. Arkansas's just had a couple bad losses. They've had some bad luck, and including that missed field goal over A&M where they should have won that game. So I'm going to go ahead and have Arkansas on the upset.
I love this Mississippi State offense under Will Rogers. Not so fast, my friend. Give me the Pirate, Mike Leach, and the Mississippi State Bulldogs at home. Jason?
I've got Arkansas. This is a team that has lost a pair of tough games, Alabama and, like Jacob said, an A&M game that they should not have lost. So much talent on this Razorbacks team. Jefferson, Rocket Sanders, Drew Sanders, Bumper Pool. This is a fun team. Season's still young. I've got the Razorbacks in an upset against Mississippi State.
College game day going to this one, but it only makes Fox Sports 1 at 11 o'clock. Number 17 TCU at number 19 Kansas. I mean, guys, it didn't even get big noon kickoff. It's a travesty. But Jason, who do you have in that game?
Yeah, I've got the Horned Frogs. As fun as this Cinderella run has been for the Jayhawks, they are due to lose eventually. And after what TCU did to Oklahoma last week, it'd be pretty hard to pick against this team. 5-point favorites in Lawrence. It'll be a big atmosphere. Can Max Duggan handle it? He's a dual threat quarterback, but this TCU offense has been balanced all year long. Could be a shootout. We've seen Kansas in a couple of those. Could be a slugfest. We saw them in a 14-12 game last week against Iowa State. So either way, defense, offense, I like TCU's team in this one. I've got the Horned Frogs in a close one in Lawrence.
I'm going to say not so fast. I'm going to ride Kansas until they lose. Give me the Jayhawks. I think the atmosphere is going to be key. We saw Appalachian State get a crazy win over Troy when they hosted game day. I think Kansas is going to feel this is their biggest football game in a decade plus. I think their players are going to show up to play. I love Jalen Daniels. That dude can flat out play. Dual threat quarterback. Give me the Jayhawks. I'm hoping this is a shootout. I think it'll be a shootout, so it'll be fun to watch. Give me the Jayhawks.
I mean, I'm going to have to ride with Jason. Momentum matters here. And Kansas, like, while they have had a great season, they've only really haven't had any wins over any significant programs with the exception of, like, was it Houston? And within that, Houston actually wasn't a significant win at all. They weren't really that good. TCU's had already a signature win this year by absolutely obliterating OU. I just like TCU momentum-wise, and frankly, I refuse to ever root for Kansas after last year. So I really hope that that comes to an end this Saturday, and we can move on with our lives.
Number 8, Tennessee at number 25, LSU. Big SEC matchup. Jacob, who do you have in that one?
Tennessee. It's not even worth it to say anything else. Tennessee looks real good this season. They look real good.
I agree. Hendon Hooker and that Tennessee offense, give me them. They go into LSU, get a big win for that volunteer football program.
You know, this is the most underrated game of the weekend for me. You have an LSU team who slipped up, lost to Florida State the first week of the season, but that is a Florida State team that has been a lot better than everybody has expected. Now, on the other side, Tennessee team that has its best team from the program in over a decade. Very fun squad. Hendon Hooker, in 15 games since joining this Volunteers team last year, 39 passing touchdowns to just 3 interceptions. He is not talked about enough. I think this will be his big national show-out game against LSU. I have Tennessee as well.
Let's keep it moving into the Pac-12. We go number 11 Utah at number 18 UCLA. UCLA decided to play some football last week with a ranked win over Washington. Jacob, can they do it again this week?
I love Chip Kelly. No, I don't. That's a lie. I think he's a great head coach for UCLA. I think he's doing the right thing. The thing is, Utah, ever since they got just kind of straight up embarrassed, they were only allowing 16 points a game since week 1. Frankly, I do think it's going to come between them and USC, who's going to come out of the Pac-12, and their big game is next week. So I think Utah is just going to keep dominating. That way they have a statement next week when they go play USC, so I'm going to go with Utah winning here.
I think great pick. I love Cam Rising. I'm going to keep riding with the Utes. They're my preseason Pac-12 pick. I think they take care of business against the UCLA team that's been very up and down this year.
Yeah, I'm going to complete the trifecta here and go with Utah as well. I'm a big fan of Cameron Rising. I thought that they lost a game that they should have won against Florida week 1, but for UCLA, as great as that win against Washington was last week, I did think that was a little bit of a flash in the pan. Fifth-year quarterback in Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I don't expect him to show anything that he hasn't already shown us. I have the Utes in a close one at the Rose Bowl.
Battle of the Religions in Las Vegas. Number 16 BYU taking on Notre Dame in the Sin City. Jason, who do you have in that one?
Yeah, I've got BYU. Really weird year for Notre Dame. This was a team that still had a lot of momentum even though Brian Kelly was out of the door. BYU has been able to maintain the positive momentum that Zach Wilson gave the program. This will be a fun one. It's in Las Vegas. I don't know how that's going to play with the fans, but two passionate college fan bases, 2 independents. Might not see teams be independent for much longer. BYU's going to the Big 12, Notre Dame to the Big 10, or possibly the ACC. I have BYU in a close one.
Man, I'm going to say not so fast on this one. I was impressed that Notre Dame went out there and beat North Carolina by 2 scores last week. And remember back to week 1, this team hung with Ohio State. BYU got absolutely demolished by Oregon, so give me Notre Dame. It's going to be a close one. It's going to go down the wire. But the Fighting Irish go cross-country and come home with a big win for Marcus Freeman.
Wow. You know, I was going to try to think of something funny and creative. I was like, you've heard of Catholics versus convicts. Now get ready for this. I couldn't think of anything, but it's quite notable. 2 teams traveling to Sin City. However, I'm going to go ahead and ride with the team that just did a new uniform drop on Tuesday, and they have like these new electric kind of blue uniforms. So I'm going to go ahead and say BYU is going to beat Notre Dame purely because of the uniforms. And Notre Dame has had just such a weird season where you never actually know what you're going to get out of this team every single time they take the field.
Now up to Ames, Iowa. Number 20, Kansas State at Iowa State, 6:30 ESPNU. Jacob, who do you have in that one?
So for me, this one's really simple because you can already tell how Iowa State is when Texas announces that it's an 11 a.m. kickoff 2 weeks prior. And they're expecting it to be a rather quick game, expecting it to be over with. K-State is a top 3 team in the Big 12 right now, in my opinion, and they should be by the end of this season. K-State's going to go in there and just simply dominate Iowa State from the first snap.
2 words, Adrian Martinez. That's way too much for Iowa State. Give me the Wildcats.
There you go.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be a low-scoring game. This is a very good Iowa State defense. They were able to hold Kansas in check last week. We're also able to hold Iowa in check a couple weeks ago as well. But I still have Kansas State. I think that Iowa State is in a bit of a transition year. They are overmatched in every game in the conference. Lots of momentum for K-State coming off a win against Oklahoma and then following that up with another win against Texas Tech. This team is currently atop of the Big 12 conference, and Adrian Martinez is a 5th-year senior looking to make a big statement in his final college season. The K-State Wildcats keep rolling.
Into the ACC, Florida State. They lost a close one to Wake Forest. They travel to take on North Carolina State, 7 o'clock on the ACC network. Jason, who do you have in that one?
Yeah, I have the Seminoles. I was very high on NC State before the season. Did not like what I saw against Clemson last week. This was a team that also narrowly escaped defeat against Eastern Carolina. Florida State has a lot of momentum as a program. Finally, Mike Norvell's building something good in Tallahassee. The recruiting's showing up. Jordan Travis under center will be too much for NC State. I've got the Seminoles.
Great pick. I think Jordan Travis is going to be too much for NC State. Remember, this is a team that barely beat East Carolina in week 1. The East Carolina kicker didn't have a horrible day. The Pirates would have won that one. I think Florida State goes into NC State and gets a big road win to continue riding the ship of that program. Jacob?
I'm just going to go completely opposite here. Look, 2 weeks ago, let's see, Wake Forest, they lost to Clemson, and then they went and they beat Florida State last week. North Carolina State just lost this week to Clemson. Let's go ahead and have them play, and it's going to be in their home territory. It's going to be a night game. The Wolfpack will show up. Florida State's going to lose this weekend. I got North Carolina.
On to the SEC. We're going to pick this one against the spread. Texas A&M traveling to number 1 Alabama. Alabama is 24-point favorites in this one. So, guys, do the Crimson Tide cover? Jacob, let's start with you.
Nick Saban hates Jimbo Fisher. There's no way they don't cover this spread. It doesn't matter who's under center for Alabama. It's going to be over right from the very start. And so it's quite simple. Alabama's going to win by at least 35 points this weekend.
I think that's a great pick. Give me the Crimson Tide by 40. I mean,
Wow.
Jimbo ran his mouth this offseason, and I don't want an angry Nick Saban playing against my football team. He's not letting us fall off the gas. And even if Bryce Young doesn't play, Jalen Milroe is fast. We saw him burn that Arkansas defense last week as Alabama pulled away late in that game with 3 late touchdowns in the fourth quarter. I think they'll pull away from an A&M team that doesn't have much offense. I think this A&M team is not going to score more than 10 or 13 points against Alabama.
It's like a TCU running back out there. They look good.
I'm going to say not so fast. And the spread on this game is big. It's a 24-point spread. Now, depending on who you ask, this is a rivalry game. And the way that I look at it, this game is to Alabama how the Texas Tech game is to Texas. The way that game panned out was Texas losing a close one. Now, that game was on the road, but I do think that Texas underestimated their competition. And that's what happened to Alabama in College Station last year. Now, there's a clear disparity here. Alabama's a much better team. I have the Crimson Tide winning this game fairly easily. 24 is a lot of points, though, in a rivalry game. Team off a loss in A&M, they're not going to be competing for an SEC championship, so this is their Super Bowl. I expect them to come and play. Those blue-chip, 5-star, top recruiting class, this thing will be close-ish. I'm not forecasting the blowout that everyone else is, but don't get it twisted. Alabama will win this game.
All right.
I like that. That's a good comparison.
Now time for the big one. Oklahoma and Texas, guys. This is the first time since the 90s that's been between two unranked teams. Who do y'all have? Let's start with you, Jason.
So I am going to go with Texas outright, and I'm also going to go with Texas covering the spread. I know that we're not doing this, but the spread is to note. It is a 7-point spread, which is the largest spread, as Jacob noted to me before the show. This is the largest spread on this game in favor of Texas since 2005. This is also the first time that Texas has been favored in this game since 2009. That means something. That means that the powers that be in Las Vegas think that there's something different with this Longhorns team than every other Longhorns team of the past 13 years. Now, we've just spent the past hour or so dissecting what's going to happen on the field. There are mismatches on all sides of the field. In this one, two programs going in different directions. Score, I think, will be high scoring. It's always a high scoring game. I have Texas 38-24.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you. Great pick, Jason. I think Texas wins. I think they cover as well. I think they're gonna win this by about 2 scores. I just think the Texas offense is gonna be too much for this Oklahoma defense. We'll have to see if it's Quinn Ewers or Hudson Card. I think it's probably going to be Quinn Ewers. It kind of seems the way it's trending. And I think this Oklahoma offense is going to struggle without Dylan Gabriel. We saw Davis Bevel really didn't do anything against TCU. So I think this is arguably a must-win for Steve Sarkisian if he wants to keep this program going in the right direction. Oklahoma's down this year. Texas has to beat them. And I think they take care of business in the Cotton Bowl, and they win. They snap a 4-game losing streak against the Sooners on Saturday.
And, if it's going to happen, it has to happen this year because it's Roschon Johnson's last year. He's never beaten Alabama, or he's never beaten OU. He wants this more than anybody. The only thing that scares me is the one thing that Texas hasn't been great at this year, and, their secondary is vastly improved, but we give up big plays. That's what kind of freaks me out with guys like Marvin Mims, and I hope we stay disciplined, and I think we can do it all. Ryan Watts is going to have one of the biggest games of his life on Saturday. But this has got to be Sark's signature win. You can't lose this game because for once OU is vulnerable. Ha 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 ha. You can see it.
That was good.
Thank you. It's going to be tight, I still feel like, but I think it will kind of open up in the fourth. I think Texas will actually finally show up for the first time this year and know how to finish because this does look like a vastly different team from what we saw last year. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go with Texas winning 35-27.
Like it.
Well, guys, it's been a lot of fun. Jacob, appreciate you coming on.
Pleasure,
Good to
guys.
have you, man.
Jason.
Pleasure as always.
Guys, man, it's going to be a fun one to watch. A lot of great college football. Just pick some great games. They're going to be fun to watch. And, of course, the big one in the Cotton Bowl. Tomorrow at 11 a.m., can Texas snap that losing streak against Oklahoma? We certainly think so. But we're ready to find out, just like everyone watching. Big shout out to Samantha Pearl behind the scenes and CC Rodriguez keeping us in line in the studio. For Jason and Jacob, I'm Adam Ogburn. Safe travels to Dallas if you're headed that way, and have a great weekend.